The men's singles heavyweights were out today, the top 8 seeds making their first appearance in the Masters tournament. Leading the display out on centre court, a rematch of last year's final between defending champ Grant Doyle from Sydney and co-Sydney sider Jamie Holmes. Holmes showed some impressive form in the first set, however Doyle snatched the vital points, taking it 7-5. He then took the second set 6-2. Next court across, it was an international duel between Swede Morten Renström and Queensland's Peter Tremacki. The 22-year-old Queenslander's aggression frequently paid off, however not often enough. Renström, the tournament's second seed, kept the Swedish flag flying, taking the match 6-4, 6-4. Then it was New Zealand's James Greenhalgh up against Paul Kildare from Western Australia. Greenhalgh was running hot in the first, eventually taking it in a tiebreaker. But Kildare, ranked several hundred places higher in the world than his opponent, steamed home, taking the second and the third 6-3, 6-4. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Waters was one of the main draw cards for the night, but doctors refused to let him fight due to a hand injury. When he and his trainer tried to explain to the crowd that he couldn't even make a fist, they were booed out of the ring. The anger of the 3,000-strong audience then turned into encouragement for flashy Spike Chaney. It took a few rounds for them to warm up, but when they did, Spike and dangerous Don Wilford went toe-to-toe. For 3 rounds, Spike was belting Wilford's head all over the ring, but he wouldn't fall. Eventually, the referee decided the American couldn't take any more and declared Spike the winner.
I enjoyed the fight all the way through. It was hard, and that's the way that I like him now. Hopefully we'll get some more hard fights and eventually go for a world title.
I go back to the drawing board and I start over again, and hopefully he'll give me a rematch later on and I'll come back.
Earlier, Newcastle's Craig Peavy had a bloody clash with Sydney's Craig Nassari. Peavy's corner threw in the towel when Nassari left Peavy looking like a standing zombie. One of the best fights of the night, though, went to Newcastle's Lance Hobson and his Filipino opponent. The pair slogged it out for 6 rounds, with Hobson given the win on points.
The Hastings District Pipe Band entertained those who'd gathered to take part in the walk. A small group of volunteers got underway about 10 a.m. It was a scenic but very wet walk along the path to the end of the break wall. Although the rain poured down, other volunteers elected to do a 4-kilometre trek to the Oxley Lookout. Money raised will go to Community Aid Abroad for its vital work in helping the poor in more than 30 countries. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The Ocean finally decided to cooperate for the final day of Surfest, and competitors made the most of a 1 to 1.5 metre swell. Local lad Jamie Lambert had his dream run stopped in the quarters, but Simon Law kept the Newcastle flag flying all the way to the final. His opponents were former world champion Barton Lynch, American Jeff Booth and Evoca's rising star Shane Powell. Law and Lynch took control of the point and soon notched up several solid scores. Booth sat in the middle of the beach and waited patiently for the wider set waves, while Powell made the most of the leftovers further south. With just minutes remaining, Lynch had the lead, and it was Simon Law who had the chance to peg him back. It wasn't quite enough, and the Sydney-sider took home $6,000 for his winning efforts. He attributed the win to an off-season spent rectifying personal problems.
Pretty much got into sorting out all the problems that were in my life, business things, and pretty much got on top of most things. And I think in a lot of ways that helps, because now I'm happier, I've got a clearer mind, and I can sort of concentrate more on my surfing.
Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
The men had bought the broken-down front-end loader from the operators of the Barley Ranch motorcycle circuit near Raymond Terrace and had driven down from Bellbird to pick it up. But while attempting to load it onto a flat-top truck from an earth ramp, something went wrong.
That's an almighty bang over there. The father came over and said that his son was trapped under the front-end loader.
The 32-year-old was on board the front-end loader when it apparently missed the truck and rolled onto its side, crushing him under the front wheels. Port Stephens SES, police and ambulance officers jacked the 8-tonne loader off the man's body. His deeply distressed father, who also suffered a heart attack, was taken to the Mater Hospital. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The manager of Karina Oaks, Manfred Kempter, today angrily denied weekend newspaper claims that the complex was a hostel of horror. Karina Oaks accommodates up to 170 residents, most of whom are intellectually impaired. The hostel is a privately run, profit-making organisation, but it's licensed by the Department of Community Services. Every 6 months, the department reviews the hostel's licence. Karina Oaks passed the latest inspection, but not without criticism.
It is close to a minimum standard. In some areas, we believe it still needs to improve to bring it up to a minimum standard, which is why there is the process of continuing review.
Community Services says more staff is required to care for the residents. There are 9 full-time and 3 part-time employees to look after up to 170 people.
I would have to agree that I could use 100 more staff with the sort of people we have here and with the situation we have here. But we can only work according to the means that we have at our hand.
Last year, a female resident was murdered in the building behind me. Police have since charged another resident with her murder.
I think it's a difficult thing to explain a murder. We're an extension of the community here. Murders happen, and I wish this hadn't happened.
Although there was talk of closing down the hostel in the 80s, the Department of Community Services says improvements have been made.
There is a clear effort by management to improve the services. We are monitoring that very closely, and our belief is that the improvements we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years will continue.
These buildings at Lambton Colliery are at the centre of a dispute which will be heard in the Land and Environment Court tomorrow. Lake Macquarie Council is appealing against a court decision to allow the owner, FAI, to demolish the heritage buildings. And the council has the backing of a very vocal lobby group, the Friends of Lambton Colliery.
These are the last of their type. These are pre-Federation colliery buildings. They were built in 1890. There is nothing else like them left in Australia.
Spokesman Colin Mundy says that if the court challenge fails, supporters will continue to fight to save the buildings.
It rests with the Heritage Council of New South Wales, and we're hoping that all the people of the Hunter will bring pressure to bear on the Heritage Council to put a permanent conservation order on these buildings.
Clyde Mitchell was working alone in the bottle shop when he was confronted by the gunman. With a sawn-off rifle pointed at his head, Clyde was told to empty the till.
"You're joking." What did I said? "You're joking, mate." He said, "No way."
Escaping with a bag of money, the robber was almost run down by a car. A bystander gave chase but lost the gunman after a few blocks. Police swarmed onto the scene.
Just be aware he is armed, right?
Police unsuccessfully searched nearby streets and the Kmart car park where the robber was last seen. This morning, investigations were concentrated on the moments just before and after the robbery. Detectives seeking vital clues and eyewitness accounts. With a medium complexion and standing 177 centimetres tall, the gunman's description is similar to those given by service station attendants after 2 other hold-ups during the past week. Andrew Lobb, NBN News. A repaired china cabinet reminds Leela Johns of the day 2 years ago when her life was shattered. Leela found her mother, Joan Williams, bashed to death in her home at Awabba near Lake Macquarie. A small amount of money had been stolen from the cabinet.
I didn't expect to find her like that.
Yesterday, 29-year-old Brett Stephen Short was sentenced under the Mental Health Act to 6 years in an institution, including the 2 years he's already spent in custody. Short broke into the Awabba home in search of food and money. When confronted by Mrs Williams, he bashed her to death with a spade, later concealing the murder weapon and stolen money.
6 years is nothing. You know, he's already done 2 1/4, so he'll be out in, 4 years. He'll be back in society. And I should think that he would do it again.
Talk is cheap when you're in opposition. The price tag on the Equestrian Centre is $2 million. If Sydney wins the 2000 Olympics, the much criticised Eastern Creek Sporting Complex would host the equestrian events. Conceding the possibility, Bob Carr, who is a member of the Olympic Committee, recognises that the Lochinvar Centre would be ideally placed to complement Eastern Creek and train our own riders. He'd stand by his claims if in government.
On the face of it, yes, it's got my support.
Australia's Olympic equestrian coach Wayne Roycroft, attending this year's Lochinvar Equestriad, designed the cross-country course and, along with the high standard of training offered by the Ryan family, sees the centre as a valuable asset to future Olympic gold.
We know from experience that when foreign countries buy some asset in our country that we almost lose them.
While in the area, Bob Carr and Maitland's Labor candidate Tony Keating assured Patterson residents that the opposition would support their fight against mining exploration licences for zeolite in the area.
Well, I certainly wouldn't rule out blocking it in the Parliament because I think there is huge concern about destroying a very beautiful part of the Hunter Valley.
The Elevenaside competition is a series of quick games before the start of the competition proper. It gives each of the North Coast sides a chance to show off their new recruits and the opportunity for some of the regulars to blow out the summer cobwebs. Many coaches also use the comp to test out younger players who are coming through the ranks and verging on first grade. The final is still being played and with plenty of gusto because the winners collect over $1,000 in prize money.
What if it hadn't been Newcastle that was hit by the quake on December 28, 1989? What if it had hit us at another time, or a larger city? The prospects are chilling.
And with due respect to the people that lost their lives, we have learnt, the international community that is, have learnt a tremendous amount for the future mitigation of potential earthquake losses.
Newcastle's immediate disaster management response and the subsequent rebuilding of a shattered city have become a model for researchers. Queensland's Dr. Damage, or Jack Rinn, is an expert in disaster response. He was flown to Newcastle as an advisor just after the quake and is one of the conveners of a 3-day symposium being held at the University of Newcastle. Delegates will tour the city over the next few days. What they see will be reported to conferences around Australia and overseas.
We don't know about what may happen in Sydney or Bangkok or other areas, eastern USA, New York City. Newcastle has been the catalyst for a lot of international work to look towards the future of saving people's lives in disastrous earthquakes.
Organised by the Newcastle City Church, a reminder of the biblical meaning of Easter was played out on the harbour foreshore. The reenactment depicted Christ and 2 thieves nailed to crosses, supporting the Christian belief that Jesus rose from the dead, giving hope for everlasting life. Those gathered were asked to evaluate their beliefs, to renounce false gods and put their trust in the Holy Spirit. The reenactment was accompanied by a program of live music, art and children's activities. The word was out that the party was on and no bear worth its stuffing would have missed the chance to take a human or 3 in tow to any one of the many picnics organised around the state. All proceeds raised were earmarked for the Royal New South Wales Institute for Deaf and Blind Children. In Newcastle, the Bears were doing their bit for the Tingara Centre. Bears are used to a knockabout life and play hard at their picnics. Some youngsters dreaded a devil-may-care bear behind the wheel of a Dodgem car or the heady heights of a Ferris wheel. There was a bear repair hospital for the occasional spill or long overdue patch-up job.
We do it painlessly, of course, and if they cry, we give them a little cuddle. And
there was a special program of entertainment for the Bears, including NBN's Big Dog. All had a very good day.
An early start for the 737 athletes competing in this year's Ironman Australian triathlon. And there was a strong international flavour with 134 of the competitors from overseas. The first leg of the event, a 3.8 kilometre swim in Wallace Lake, that got underway at 6 o'clock, and from then on the competitors didn't stop for another 8 or more hours. Next up, a 182 kilometre bike ride which saw competitors do the Foster to Tarbuck Bay route twice. The 42 kilometre run transformed residential streets into a marathon racetrack. First home for the 3rd year running was Finnish triathlon champion Pauli Kiru in the unofficial time of 8 hours, 10 minutes and 53 seconds. His time well outside the world record. From the Netherlands. Her time of 9 hours, 1 minute and 29 seconds set a new Australian record.
George Tivius is an employment officer at Mayfield CES, but now he may be on the lookout for a new career. Last month, the 29-year-old auditioned for the Australian Opera's The Meistersingers of Nuremberg. He says he was confident from the start.
Fortunately, when I sang, they talked all the way through it. It was the director of the production and the chorus master, which often they do, which obviously left me at ease because they weren't staring at me while I was singing. So I was ecstatic.
In the past, other opera singers from the Hunter have made it into the elite company's chorus, but George is one of the first tenors to get a minor character role.
I won't be just stuck in the chorus with about 50 or 60 other people. Meistersingers is one of their largest productions, and there are quite a few people involved in that, so it's just a stepping stone above. I mean, hopefully it may lead to something else.
George says he'll step up his practicing, somehow fitting his work schedule around gruelling rehearsals before the production opens in Sydney in July. It's the break most budding Pavarottis dream of, one that could be the start of something big.
Well, I hope so, but I mean, it's very hard to tell. They've got to hear my voice and hear it properly and see if that I can do what they want me to do, and it depends if anything's available as well. It's just very, very difficult to even think about at this moment.
Visiting medical officers, or VMOs as they're known, play a vital role in the health system. They're the anaesthetists, the surgeons and the other specialists who treat patients while in hospital. Representative Dr Chris Howes says they'll withdraw their services unless a dispute over pay and conditions is resolved.
Hospitals like Maitland and Belmont won't have any senior medical staff at all, and the other major hospitals will severely be affected.
The doctors are threatening to resign because an independent arbitrator decided that their pay should be cut and changes should be made to the terms of their employment.
These new conditions that are preempted by this arbitration is just not acceptable, full stop.
Boss of the Hunters Health Service, Dr Tim Smythe, believes the matter will be resolved before the arbitrator's decision takes effect in July.
Well, I don't believe that we are going to have mass resignations. I think, unfortunately, there's been an overreaction by a small number of visiting medical staff.
Dr Smythe says if they do go ahead with their resignations, the health service will recruit other doctors to replace them. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The wounded sergeant was given emergency treatment by paramedics before being loaded on board the rescue helicopter. He's now undergoing surgery at the John Hunter Hospital, his condition described as stable. Sergeant Jeff Smith had been shot twice as he stood at the counter of the Nelson Bay Police Station. Just after 2 this afternoon, a 21-year-old man, Adam Reid, described as a volatile loner, burst into the station confronting the sergeant behind the counter.
Sort of like a hotter street that was waiting to happen.
The sergeant was hit in the stomach and thigh.
By a person who apparently ran down the hill to just behind me here and apparently put the gun to his mouth and shot himself, and I believe he's now dead.
The gunman's father, a chef at the nearby Seabreeze Hotel, attempted to warn police after apparently arguing with his son.
While he was on the phone talking to the father, he heard 2 muffled shots. He was at one end of the building in his office. He ran out of that office along the hallway in time to see the sergeant folding himself over onto the carpet and bleeding. Another shot was fired. The sergeant was unarmed. The revolver was then aimed at the sergeant, and the trigger pulled and the bullet just missed the senior sergeant's left ear and hit the brickwork behind him, and the offender decamped down the hill to here behind me.
Police have now secured both scenes. Extra detectives are coming in from Newcastle, Maitland and Raymond Terrace. Investigations will continue into the night. Andrew Lobb reporting, NBN News.
The Hunter Valley Tourist Information Centre operates from this building in Waratah. It's owned by two Newcastle businessmen and is run by General Manager Keith Shortland. From the same office, the company also operates the Hunter Valley Booking Centre and the Hunter Valley Brochure Service. But their core company is the Hunter Valley Tourist Information Centre, with the recognised information symbol and the well-known Hunter Valley Tourist Circuit logo. The company is not affiliated with a local council and is not registered with the New South Wales Tourism Commission.
The icons are public icons. In fact, the eye is an international public icon. It is recognised by tourists throughout the world, and we are all about serving tourists.
Council tourist operators in Newcastle, Cessnock, Port Stephens, Great Lakes and Lake Macquarie say they are concerned the public may become confused.
The name suggested that they are a Hunter Information Centre, and people who are requesting information from the Hunter Valley, well, that is a number you will get, and it creates a little bit of confusion.
Because of the company's name, Telecom is directing tourist queries to this office, but Mr Shortland and his staff could not answer our questions on the Hunter Valley. The council tourist operators have asked the Minister for Consumer Affairs to apply an embargo on the registration and use of the name Tourist Information Centre unless it's endorsed by the New South Wales Tourism Commission.
The 7-hectare site at Park Avenue and Northcote Drive would seem ideal for Mr Constantine's purpose. He bought the old Rockley textile factory at auction last September for a bargain basement price of $1.4 million, with the market idea in mind. And Mr Constantine knows what he's about. He developed the hugely successful Parklea markets in Sydney's far west. First move is to have the site rezoned from industrial to commercial, and that would seem quite straightforward.
We are looking for people to come to Newcastle and do these sort of things in Newcastle. It's a big city and we want everything that you get in a big city to happen here in Newcastle for our people.
But it won't all be plain sailing. The proposal is fiercely opposed by Newcastle's City Centre Committee, fearing it will draw even more people and their dollars away from Hunter Street.
It's going to mean a death knell to quite a few of the retailers that are now paying the ridiculous council rates and overheads that are put on us for having legitimate retail setups in the central CBD area.
At Katara, the nearby Garden City shopping centre is waiting to hear more about the proposal before deciding its position.
There's some negatives there because of the costing exercises where our retailers obviously do have a certain criteria as far as the land tax components and all the other costings related to a shopping centre environment compared to a market stall operation. So we'd be concerned about that. But then probably because it's in the Katara area, there's a positive there for the precinct that brings in some extra people there on a weekend trading pattern that could be positive for the centre.
Alderman Rigby is all for the idea, saying the market will bring people into the region, providing the opportunity for traders all over to provide the goods and services they want.
Well, he wants to start trading in the Christmas rush, and we would like to see him start trading in the Christmas rush.
Mayor Doug Carley has declared himself a full-time mayor, yet 3 weeks ago he took a week off, and today it's been revealed he's off on holidays for 11 days. There's also been comments from media organisations that the mayor is rarely available for comment. Alderman Mark Booth says council was not told of the mayor's leave.
The mayor has not informed council of his absence, and that is disappointing.
It's believed the Mayor is away until the 19th, apparently spending time with his family. There's speculation he may have gone to Fiji. However, Town Clerk John Rankin could not confirm today when the Mayor will be back, or even if he'll chair Tuesday night's council meeting. Alderman Booth says the community is already disillusioned with council and the Mayor has walked out at a difficult time.
He has declared himself a full-time mayor, and now he chooses to write his own job description for his mayoral position and chooses to do what he likes. So it's just as disappointing that other workers in the workplace only get 4 days off, and the mayor now can extend his period of break.
The Breakers had their last run today in preparation for Sunday's crunch match. A win against Brisbane doesn't mean the team automatically leapfrogs into the semis. They're relying on Parramatta to lose and Sydney Croatia to at least finish with a draw. Although there are still many factors to consider before qualifying, the players aren't feeling the pressure.
They are very fresh in mind as well as in body, and I don't think there's anything that will stop them on Sunday.
One player who is feeling a few butterflies is Warren Spink. He needs only 3 goals to become the league's highest goal scorer for the season.
He really only needs 2 goals to draw level, and I think against the Brisbane side there's every chance that he might get those 2 and 3 goals.
Breakers management are hoping for a big crowd to see the season out and inspire the team to a possible finals berth.
Easter services in St Thomas's Anglican Church, Port Macquarie, were different from the norm. The Easter story of the crucifixion of Jesus was reenacted in a pageant of song and dance. A traditional service followed. The congregation was told of the supreme sacrifice Christ made to wash away all earthly sins.
The competition is open to anyone who likes to dangle a line. Where you pick up your catch doesn't matter either, the beach, the creek or open sea. Within minutes of the comp getting underway, the ramps around Coffs were chockers. The boaties tried to get a distinct advantage in the big fish category, but were turned back.
It is very disappointing for the deep sea fishermen. The weather is not as we'd like to see it. We have winds out there at possibly 10 to 15 knots and probably up to 20 knots.
Those that were out early enough did bag a couple of good sizes, but while some guys were bringing in the big uns, others spent the day relaxing and waiting for that dream bite. By this afternoon, the stories of the ones that got away were getting bigger and bigger. At the rate they were going, Moby Dick wouldn't be safe right now. The sport's big guns began rolling into Tamworth this morning, speed machines of all shapes and sizes. This is actually a Commodore and is capable of speeds well in excess of 200 kilometres an hour.
The thrill all of its own, the acceleration, the speed, it's a real kick.
One of the big stars will be this modified T-model Ford. It's now rated the fastest car in the world for its class. It's been valued at over $100,000. Part of the glamour of drag racing is away from the speed lanes. Drivers spend hundreds of hours making sure their machines are glistening and that the chrome is sparkling. During race day, some of the biggest crowds are looking at the cars just sitting in the pits. Boyhood dreams of getting behind the wheel of some awesome power taking over. Although the cars will take centre stage, they won't be the only attraction. A motorbike duel will also be a crowd pleaser.
Even the people that aren't bike orientated, you know, they love to watch the Harleys, and we've got a turbocharged unit coming up from Sydney to do battle with the Kawasaki's up here, so a little bit of rivalry.
All money raised on Sunday will be put into the development of a motorsports complex near Goddard's Lane.